With the NFL Combine over, I thought you guys might enjoy a little bit of a mock draft roundup, just looking over some of the top outlets out there and what they heard and learned from the Combine and what they project the NFL draft to look like. So we're going to run through 5 different publications and see who they have Atlanta taking with pick number 15. Now, before we get into today's episode, help us out by hitting that thumbs up button down below. We have not crossed 400 likes in well over a week at this point, and it's a very competitive office here at Chat Sports, and I don't want our channel to be towards the bottom. So if you have not liked the video yet, please go ahead and do so today and every time you tune into an episode of Falcons Today, as long as you like the episode. But let's start by looking at the ESPN mock draft, which is Jalon Walker, the edge rusher / linebacker out of Georgia. I'll actually combo this with The Athletic because they also had Walker going to Atlanta. Now, Jalon is a player that we have not talked about a ton on the channel because I'm not even sure what position he's going to play at the next level. And I'm only interested in edge rushers or Will Johnson at pick number 15. And I don't think Walker is really going to be an edge. I think he's going to be a linebacker that has some versatility to his game. Now, here's what Jordan Reed from ESPN said about his selection for the Dirty Birds. Walker can provide the Falcons with quick pass rush help. He finished with 6.5 sacks this season, and his 17.1% pressure rate was 5th in the FBS. He's a bit of a tweener at 6'1", 243 pounds, but the Falcons need a chaos creator behind the line of scrimmage. Walker can be used in multiple ways as an aggressive edge defender who frequently changes alignment. I disagree with Jordan. I don't think Atlanta needs a chaos creator. Atlanta needs a pass rusher. They need a guy who can line up off the edge, first, second, and third down, and hunt down the quarterback. And while I think there's a lot to like about Walker's game, I don't believe he fits that mold. Now, he is a very good football player, so I'm not going to be distraught if he were to be the pick for Atlanta, because we're talking about one of the best pure defenders in college football last year. He played a little bit of edge. He played some inside linebacker. I won't say he's remember like Roquan at Georgia? I don't think he's that comparable because Roquan was much more of a true inside linebacker, whereas Walker showed some more edge rusher flashes, but I don't really see the fit for Atlanta. But I can't ignore someone who had an incredible campaign this past year in Athens. 6.5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, 34 pressures. He's a good football player. And I'm in the business of getting good football players. So that's why I'm not slamming the door shut on Walker. But if it were up to me, I would probably pass on him. If you have 3 to 4 good options and he's one of them, I want to go after an edge rusher. And at 6'1", 243 pounds, he's not lining up on the defensive line. And in a 3-4 defense, that limits him to being an outside linebacker. And as a sub 250 pound, 6'1" outside linebacker, I don't think he's going to have a big role on first, second, and third down when it comes to setting the edge as a run stopper in early down situations and then pinning his ears back. I could see him having a successful career in the NFL if a team knows how to utilize him correctly. And I think a team could be like, and this might sound hilarious, kind of like the Eagles. I know it's been an absolute pipeline from Athens to Philadelphia, but that was an Eagles defense when they started drafting all those Bulldogs that was pretty well established. And they were in the market of, hey, we've got a good thing going here. Let's just be in the business of adding good football players. If I'm picking 15 for Atlanta, I'm looking to start a cornerstone, right? You got to get some building blocks on defense. And while Walker is a very good linebacker, inside linebacker is just not a building block anymore for the modern NFL defense. I'm not saying you can't draft inside linebackers high or spend on them in free agency, but now when you're trying to start a defensive identity, and that to me starts at up front with the edge rusher spot. So I would rather pursue a true traditional edge rusher. Not someone who, if you check out the other Dick Butkus Award winners, basically the college football best linebacker, while they have had plenty of success in the NFL, I will not say that these guys are edge rushers, right? I mean, Roquan, phenomenal for the Bears and for the Ravens. Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, really good stuff with the Browns. Really too early to say for Peyton Wilson, but he had a strong campaign with the Steelers. Jack Campbell from Iowa going to the Hawkeyes, going to Detroit. Like, there are some excellent linebackers here, and they are all probably going to make really good NFL players if they haven't already, but they're not edge rushers. And I just keep going back to the fact that I either want an edge rusher or I want Will Johnson. And an off-ball linebacker at 15, when you've got Hayden Ellis, and sure, injury-plagued now Troy Anderson, Nate Landman, you've got those guys. I don't think you need to add more to that room. Now, when it comes to Georgia players and Atlanta, for whatever reason, they don't seem to mix and mesh very well. So will the Falcons pick a Bulldog in this draft? Let me know in the comment section below if you believe that is going to be the selection. Let's fast forward to the next mock draft, which comes from Lance Zierlein at NFL.com, where he has Atlanta going with Mike Green. So does PFF, by the way, another Mike Green selection. That's the Marshall edge rusher, who we have talked about plenty on the channel. But if you're just starting to wake up a little bit for your pre-draft analysis, let me catch you up on everything you need to know about Mike Green. First, we'll start with what Lance Zierlein had to say. The Falcons desperately need pass rush. Green absolutely dominated his competition en route to a huge 2024 campaign. He's an explosive, ready-made rusher with start-now talent. He led the FBS in sacks with 17. He finished second in tackles for loss with 23. He was top 10 in pressure rate. From a number standpoint, from a production standpoint, it doesn't get much better than that. Now, there are always going to be some concerns when you play at a school like Marshall and the competition you went up against. Yeah, Khalil Mack was a top 5 pick out of Buffalo. I think the Raiders made a good pick there, and every other team that's had him on their roster was very happy with what they got out of him. So when it comes to level of competition, I don't get too concerned when you play the edge rusher spot, because you do have opportunities like when Marshall played Ohio State to put up some good film. And you know what? Mike Green put up some really good tape against future offensive linemen from Columbus. Now, Green was not a physical specimen at the NFL Combine. I don't want you guys to start falling trap to RAS, which is relative athletic score. It takes your measurements, and it's relative to other people at that same position and whatnot, and how do you rank amongst them? Don't fall trap to, oh, I'm only in the market for athletes. There's always a ton of athletes. There's always track stars in the draft, in the combine. I'm in the market for football players. That's a guy who can get after the quarterback, and 17 sacks showcase that. Now, the concern with Green as of late is these allegations that are coming more to light during the pre-draft process and some of the research that's being done on these guys as teams make a huge investment in them. Green transferred from Virginia to Marshall, and I'm not a Marshall fan nor a Virginia fan, so I never paid or knew much about this at all. But evidently, it may be stemming from some sexual assault allegations. Now, he has not been charged with any crime, and I'm in the belief of innocent until proven guilty. And while it's very unfortunate when there's real victims out there that don't have their stories heard to the fullest, there are also so many instances of football players like, remember the punt god out of San Diego State and that huge sexual assault allegation that came out against him, and all of it was made up, right? And he missed out on some real NFL money as a result. So these are always tough topics to discuss, but I'm willing to give Mike Green the benefit of the doubt / innocent until proven guilty, and not just cross him off my list without me personally ever talking to him, getting his side of the story, just kind of going off of what people write about him. Now, before we look at the final mock draft for Atlanta, I do want to give you guys a quick heads up. There's this Falcons sideline gear. It's a pullover, kind of a sweatshirt, not really a sweatshirt, more of a pullover, that is 35% off. So it's over at Fanatics. Use our link to get this awesome deal, chatsports.com/ATL sale. I put that link because I know you already forgot it in the comments and description of today's video. So scroll on down right now and check it out. That way you can get some nice Falcons gear for, I know, a little bit a while from now when the fall and the winter months get here, but it's not going to be 35% off in October when you want to get this. And fifth and final mock draft we have is CBS Sports where they have Shemar Stewart, the defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. I was in Indianapolis for the Combine. His name probably came up top 5 most frequently. I mean, number 1 was Cam Ward. Number 2 was Shedeur Sanders. And then a couple other guys who were probably battling for 3, 4, and 5. And Stewart was definitely in that camp. Why? Well, speaking of RAS, he scored a perfect 10. You know who else scored like near a perfect 10? Jalon Walker, Myles Garrett, just a couple of first overall picks. And the way he tested, his size, his weight, his height, his speed, everything like that, it looks like a bona fide superstar from a pure testing standpoint. So we could stop right here, right? But we won't. Because the production is something I personally just can't seem to move past. He did have 39 pressures, which is a really good number, and generating pressure on the quarterback is awesome. Everyone just looks to sacks to evaluate these players. You know who didn't get a sack but still made a game-changing play? The Chiefs defensive lineman that generated pressure on the Chiefs defensive lineman that generated pressure on Josh Allen in the AFC Championship game that forced not a bad throw, but a quickish throw to Dalton Kincaid, who couldn't hold on to it. Turnover on down, Chiefs go to the Super Bowl. That's a pressure. But that play never pops up when you just look at sacks. But it's still an incredibly valuable play. So pressures are really good, don't get me wrong. But at some point, you do need to get to the quarterback. And I've showed this graphic before over the last 2 years. You know I love history. My fiance's back in town from a trip in Italy, so I had to pull back on World War II in color. But I am able to go back in the NFL archives here. And I went from 2017 to 2022. I picked that sample size because it's a large sample size. And I think at this point now, going into 2025, we can grade who the good and bad picks were. I don't think we can do that for guys who have been in the league for just a year or two. In this time span, 24 edge rushers were selected in round 1. 16 would have a fifth-year option picked up or made a Pro Bowl. I'll use those two measuring sticks to say if a player was a successful pick or not. For that team. Maybe they were successful for the next team, but for the original team, was their fifth-year option picked up or did they make a Pro Bowl? And we'll use that as the line in the sand for being a successful pick or not. Of those 16 successful picks, 0 of them had fewer than 5.5 sacks in a single season in college. Only 1 of them had fewer than 11.5 career sacks in college. Any guesses on who that 1 is? That is Jalon Walker, who has had really strong seasons with the Jags, back-to-back years with 10 or more sacks, went first overall. If you're banking on Stewart to be the next Shemar Stewart to be the next Jalon Walker, you're telling me I'll roll the dice on a 1 in 24 chance. I don't like those odds. Maybe he will be the next Jalon Walker, where didn't have a ton of production, but his name skyrocketed from the combine because of all the testing, and it turns out to be a really good pick. Although Aiden Hutchinson, probably the better pick still. Anywho, you can do that. I'm not. I'm just not going to take those odds. I'd much rather, I wouldn't even say play it safe, but I'd much rather have history on my side. And history tells me if you can't sack the quarterback in college, not more often than not, vastly more often than not, you are not going to wake up in the NFL, no matter how tall, strong, or fast you are, and learn to sack the quarterback. So, Shark Tank mode, for that reason, I'm out. Now, if you are begging me to reconsider, the only way I would dabble in a Shemar Stewart selection is if you trade back. If you were to acquire an extra day 2 draft pick, go from 15 to say 20. All right, let's say Denver wants to trade up to get Tyler Ward. At 20, there's probably 3 to 4 edge rushers selected at that point. You may not have your first or second choice anymore. You got an extra day 2 pick. Maybe that extra day 2 pick makes the risk of taking someone with such little production in college, who, by the way, is not like a nose tackle. I know you might see 1.5 sacks and think oh, well, he's a defensive tackle. He's not supposed to get after the quarterback. No, he is a defensive end. If Atlanta were to move back and get an extra pick or 2, I could become a little bit more comfortable. But it still would not be my preference. And I doubt Shemar Stewart is watching this. And if you are, please don't beat me up because you definitely could. I just go off of history. And history tells me guys who do not have production in college at the edge rusher spot are not successful in the NFL. So, after going through all these players right here, if you had to make the pick for Atlanta, who would it be? Jalon Walker, Mike Green, or Shemar Stewart? I'm going to show you my ranking in just a moment, but scroll on down, give me your thoughts in the comment section. My preference, Mike Green. I'm going to go with Walker, even though I didn't sound super jazzed up about it at the beginning of the video. I did say he's a good football player. And maybe I should just stop right there and go, Matthew, turn your brain on. You say he's a good football player. Go get good football players. But there has to be some level of positional need here. And I don't believe at sub 250 pounds and 6'1", he's going to make a good pass rusher at the next level. He's probably going to make a really good linebacker who you can use in pass rushing packages, kind of like Caden Ellis. But at pick 15, I don't want Caden Ellis. I wouldn't say Vic Beasley, but more than just the one good season, right? I want a pass rusher. And there's plenty of pass rushers to pick from in this draft, so go get one. Let's spin the wheel to wrap up today's episode. I just picked 6 commenters from a previous video, so make sure to always comment, and your name could be on the wheel. Mr. Reed, spin that wheel. Who's going to win? Imagine this was Beast Games. Or like a Mr. Beast video where no one knew, but at the end of this, the winner got like $500,000. I'm sorry to get that's not happening. I don't have that money to give up. But Mr. Beast, if you're watching and you want to sponsor the wheel, that'd be how many comments do you think we'd get? We usually get about 200 to say 250 comments. If I said this next video, we're going to give out $5,000 to whoever name it lands on, I think 10,000 comments. Yeah, 10,000 comments is coming. I don't have $5,000 to give out. Okay, James Morton. Sorry, James. James is sitting there like this is the biggest bullshit ever. I want absolutely nothing. 2 claps for James. You did get 2 claps, James, and that is priceless. 1, 2. Thank you, James. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see everyone tomorrow.